Kevin Stefanski's handling of Shedeur Sanders isn't just controversial, it's damaging. Every hit Sanders takes behind that crumbling offensive line chips away at more than just yards. It chips away at trust, momentum, and long-term potential. No real adjustments, no meaningful game reps, and no effort to develop chemistry, just survival mode. That's not how you raise a quarterback.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
That's how you ruin one. And it's not a coincidence. When a young player gets this level of neglect while another, like Dillon Gabriel, gets full support, it forces uncomfortable questions about it. This coaching imbalance isn't about competition, it's about culture. If Sanders continues in this environment, the Browns aren't just wasting a promising quarterback, they're actively damaging him. His development is being stunted in real time, and the longer Stefanski avoids accountability, the clearer it becomes. This isn't just a failure of strategy. It's a failure of leadership. Ravens head coach John Harbaugh said the quiet part out loud. And in doing so, he cracked open the uncomfortable truth about what's happening in Cleveland with Shedeur Sanders. It's not just bad coaching. It's not just a questionable strategy. It's sabotage. That's the word Harbaugh used, and honestly, it's hard to argue with him. What's happening to Shedeur Sanders isn't a developmental misstep or growing pains. It's a deliberate failure wrapped in excuses. A pattern of neglect that doesn't just undermine a player's growth. It threatens his entire career. And Kevin Stefanski? He's at the center of it. Let's call this what it is, a complete coaching breakdown, where one quarterback is prioritized and protected, while the other is left to take hits, get minimal reps, and then be quietly blamed when things fall apart. There's no way to watch the contrast between Dillon Gabriel's treatment and Shedeur Sanders and not see the bias. Gabriel is getting the full rookie development package. Live game reps, a playbook molded to fit his strengths, patience when he struggles, and most importantly, consistent investment. Sanders? He's being thrown into the fire, expected to prove himself, in systems designed to fail him. And when it inevitably doesn't go well, the staff falls back on the easiest out. He's not ready. That line is being used like a shield to deflect accountability. But it's not Sanders who isn't ready. It's a coaching staff that isn't ready to actually support him. The protection schemes? Non-existent. He's getting hit constantly. The game plans? Rigid, outdated, and absolutely not tailored to what Sanders does well. And the opportunities? Sporadic, inconsistent, and often under pressure-filled, no-win situations. You don't develop quarterbacks that way. You bury them. The Browns had an opportunity to mold a talented, high IQ quarterback with real leadership potential into the face of their franchise. Instead, they've created a toxic environment where Sanders is set up to fail while the coaching staff continues to hide behind press conference cliches and recycled excuses. And the longer this goes on, the more irreversible the damage becomes. Because this isn't just about X's and O's. This is about confidence, about identity, about whether or not a young player can trust the people around him. And right now, Sanders has every reason not to. He's being told he's part of the future, while being treated like a liability in the present. He's watching someone else get prioritized, even when that player struggles. And he's being sent into chaotic situations with no support, no rhythm, and no game plan designed for his skill set. How is that supposed to build confidence? How does that foster development? It doesn't. It tears it apart. What's most frustrating is that this isn't a hidden issue. It's visible. It's blatant. And now it's being publicly called out by another head coach. Harbaugh's comments weren't just dramatic. They were necessary. Because when the league starts talking about your dysfunction, it's already past the point of internal resolution. This is a leadership crisis. Kevin Stefanski isn't just mismanaging a quarterback. He's mismanaging the entire philosophy of development. He's creating a two-tier system where one rookie gets every opportunity to succeed, and the other gets ignored until he fails. That's not just favoritism. That's destructive. And if we're being honest, it looks like fear. Fear of accountability. Fear of losing control. fear of letting a player like Sanders succeed, because it might expose how badly the system is failing. Because if Sanders does succeed when actually supported, then what's the excuse been this whole time? It's easier for Stefanski to hide behind structure than to admit he's stifling talent to protect his own job. But protecting your own job at the expense of your players' futures? That's where you lose the locker room. That's where you lose credibility. And that's exactly where Stefanski is heading. This isn't just about Shedeur Sanders being overlooked. It's about what it says when a coach deliberately doesn't create a space for growth. When you take a player with visible, tested talent and put them in a position to struggle, not because they can't play, but because you never gave them the right environment to thrive. Sanders isn't failing. He's being failed. And that's a key distinction. Because if the system around you is broken, it doesn't matter how skilled you are. Confidence gets chipped away. Timing disappears. You start second-guessing everything. And for a quarterback, those cracks become permanent if they're not addressed early. That's what makes this so dangerous. Every week that goes by without meaningful reps, without protection, without investment, Sanders falls further behind. Not because of his own limitations, but because the Browns have created an environment where growth isn't prioritized. It's postponed, or worse, denied. There's no clearer example than the handling of Gabriel. While Sanders gets thrown into bad drives with no rhythm and pressure up the middle, Gabriel is surrounded by stability. He gets the reps, the coaching, the patience. He makes mistakes, but they're seen as part of the process. Meanwhile, Sanders is expected to be flawless in chaos, or else be labeled a backup. It's not just unbalanced. It's calculated. And it's sending a message to Sanders, to the locker room, and to the league. This coaching staff isn't invested in development. It's invested in preserving a narrative. A narrative where only the chosen players get to succeed. Where failure isn't seen as a coaching issue. It's pinned on the player who wasn't ready. And where potential gets buried beneath ego. John Harbaugh called that out for what it is. Because it's not just unprofessional, it's unethical. When you have a player like Shedeur Sanders, you don't sideline him and hope things magically click one day. You put in the work. You build the system. You protect him. You give him the reps. You grow with him. And when you don't, when you make the conscious choice to undercut that development, that's not oversight. That's sabotage. And let's not act like this is rare. We've seen this across the league before. Young quarterbacks who get labeled not ready after being thrown into no-win situations with no real support. And years later, people ask what happened to their potential. It didn't go anywhere. It was mismanaged, stifled, and ignored. That's the exact path Sanders is being forced onto right now. And unless something changes fast, the long-term effects could be irreversible. Not just for him, but for the Browns. Because when you mishandle talent at this level, you don't just lose a player, you lose the future. There's still time to fix it. But that starts with accountability. And in this case, accountability looks like change at the top. Stefanski has had his chance. He's made his decisions. He's shown who he's willing to invest in, and who he's willing to sacrifice. If the Browns care about building a sustainable future, if they care about creating a culture that values growth over fear, development over politics, then this coaching approach has to go. Because this isn't working. And the longer they keep pretending it is, the deeper the damage becomes. Let's know what you think. Was Harbaugh right to call it sabotage? Is Stefanski holding Sanders back? Drop a comment below. Hit the like button if you're done watching talent get mismanaged. Share this if you're writing for Sanders, and subscribe for more deep dives into the chaos of pro football's most controversial stories. There comes a point when it's no longer about the potential of a player. It's about the choices of the people in charge. And in Cleveland, those choices are becoming impossible to defend. What's happening to Shedeur Sanders isn't complicated. It's not a mystery. It's not some abstract coaching philosophy that the average fan just doesn't understand. No, it's basic, it's visible, and it's ugly. A coach is actively neglecting the development of one of his most promising young quarterbacks, while overinvesting in another. And instead of owning that imbalance, instead of adjusting, instead of even acknowledging that something isn't working, He's doubling down. Kevin Stefanski isn't just refusing to adapt. He's refusing to care. That's what Harbaugh saw. That's why he spoke out. Because this isn't just a matter of talent evaluation anymore. This is about the integrity of coaching. A real coach protects his players. A real coach creates a system that lifts everyone, not just the ones he's personally comfortable with. And a real coach takes responsibility when that system fails. Stefanski isn't doing any of that. And the people trying to spin this as some kind of merit-based pecking order are ignoring the reality right in front of them. Sanders isn't being allowed to earn anything. You can't earn reps if you're not given reps. You can't build rhythm if you're yanked in and out of broken situations. And you can't develop chemistry with your team if you're kept away from the huddle like you're some kind of long-term science experiment. This is a pattern we've seen before. Coaches locking onto one quarterback early and refusing to let go, no matter what the other guys on the roster do, no matter how poorly their guy performs, and no matter how clear it becomes that someone else deserves a shot. Dillon Gabriel didn't steal this opportunity. He was handed it. And once he had it, the entire infrastructure followed. Representatives, playbook tweaks, protection, timing, patience. That's what investment looks like. And that's what Shedeur Sanders hasn't received, not even once. Instead, he gets the scraps. He gets mop-up duty. Or, worse, he gets shoved into high-pressure drives behind a collapsing line just to see if he can make something happen. That's not development. That's entrapment. And when it doesn't work, Stefanski gets to shake his head and say, he's not ready. It's the perfect setup, except it's only perfect for the coach. For the player, it's suffocating. We need to talk about what this does mentally. This isn't just about game tape and performance charts. This is about confidence, identity, future trajectory. You take a quarterback out of the rhythm of the game, out of the structure of trust, out of the flow of communication with his offense. And what do you expect? It's death by 1,000 cuts. And the longer this continues, the harder it is to undo. That's what's so damaging about this situation. It's not just unfair, it's corrosive. It eats away at the player's mindset. Because how do you show up every day, do the work, stay ready, and still be told you're not the priority? How long before you stop believing in the process? How long before you lose faith in the staff? That trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. And right now, Shedeur Sanders is being asked to trust a system that has done nothing but fail him. This is where the systemic issue kicks in. Because it's not just Stefanski, it's the whole structure around him that allows this kind of favoritism to go unchecked. You don't get a situation this lopsided without a whole organization turning a blind eye. Someone, somewhere in that building has to be watching this unfold and thinking, this isn't right. So why isn't anyone stepping in? Why isn't the front office asking harder questions about why a talented quarterback is being buried on the depth chart while another one gets a tailor-made path to success? Is it fear? Is it comfort? Is it politics? Whatever the reason, the result is the same. Talent is being wasted. Shedeur Sanders didn't come into this league as a project. He wasn't some wild card prospect. He came in with polish, poise, and a clear ceiling that could easily be reached if the coaching staff committed to helping him reach it. But that's not what's happening. Instead, every sign points to a coach who's protecting his job, his narrative, and his pick, not his players. And that's where Harbaugh's comments hit hardest. Because he didn't say this out of rivalry or for headlines. He said it because what's happening in Cleveland isn't just poor management, it's malpractice. This is a quarterback being left out to dry, being denied a fair shot, being thrown into chaos without protection, then blamed for the outcome. It's not just bad luck, it's deliberate. And when you string all the decisions together, the pattern becomes too obvious to ignore. No game reps, no offensive adjustments, no protection, no development plan, but lots of excuses. Lots of press conferences with vague comments about long-term growth and being ready when the time comes. Meanwhile, that time never comes. And the guy they're supposedly developing is sitting idle, watching a less qualified quarterback get all the tools he's been denied. This isn't about Sanders versus Gabriel. This is about how coaching staff picks winners early and then refuses to admit when they're wrong. Sanders is losing valuable time. Time that should be spent building rapport with his receivers. Time that should be spent learning through real in-game experience. Time that should be building him up, not tearing him down. And when that time is gone, you don't get it back. So the Browns have a choice. Keep pretending this is a functional strategy or course correct before it's too late. They can't keep gaslighting their fans, their players, and their locker room with generic statements while continuing to let talent rot on the bench. Because the longer this goes on, the more irreversible the damage becomes, not just to Shedeur Sanders, but to the credibility of the franchise itself. This is why Harbaugh's statement mattered. It wasn't just criticism. It was a call-out, a warning, a challenge to the Browns to stop pretending that what they're doing is in the best interest of the team. Because it's not. It's self-preservation dressed up as strategy. It's favoritism disguised as development. And it's a dangerous game to play with the future of a young quarterback who deserves better. If the Browns want to salvage this, if they truly care about player development, long-term success, and the kind of leadership that creates winning cultures, then it starts with accountability. And that means taking a hard look at Kevin Stefanski. Because you can't keep saying you're building something for the future when you're actively sabotaging the very players that future depends on. At this point, the excuses are running out. And honestly, so is the time. The Browns can't keep kicking this can down the road, hoping no one notices how badly they've handled Shedeur Sanders. Because people are noticing. Coaches are noticing. Players are noticing. And thanks to John Harbaugh blowing the lid off in public, the entire league is now paying attention. This is no longer just an internal personnel issue. It's a public indictment of how the Cleveland Browns manage their talent. Especially there, and Harbaugh didn't hold back for a reason. He's been around long enough to know what this kind of dysfunction looks like. He's seen what happens when a coaching staff chooses politics over progress. When they decide who they're invested in early and then put all their energy into protecting that narrative, even if it means sabotaging someone else's development in the process. That's exactly what's happening with Sanders. And now, it's not just whispers. It's headlines. Let's talk about what this means going forward. Because it's not just about whether Stefanski's coaching style is outdated, or whether Gabriel deserves the reps he's getting. It's about what this says to the rest of the team, to the locker room, to the next draft class watching from afar. If you're a young player watching this unfold, what conclusion are you supposed to draw? That if you're not the coach's hand-picked guy from day one, you won't get a real shot? That no matter how hard you work, how well you prepare, how much potential you have, you'll be benched because someone else fits the mold better? That's the kind of environment that drains motivation, that fractures locker rooms, that makes players question whether the leadership is actually committed to winning or just covering their own tracks. And it's not just Sanders who's affected by that. It's everyone in that building. If you're a receiver trying to develop chemistry with your quarterback, how do you build timing and trust when the QB carousel is spinning based on favoritism? If you're on the O-line, how do you protect someone you barely get reps with? If you're a coach lower on the totem pole, how do you teach fundamentals when the entire structure is compromised by bias? It's systemic. And that's what makes it so dangerous. This isn't just about a coaching decision gone wrong. It's about a foundational failure to create a team culture where merit and growth actually matter. Let's take this even further. Let's say the Browns finally decide to give Shedeur Sanders the reps he deserves. Let's say they wake up, recognize the mess they've made, and hand him the ball. How much damage has already been done? Because development isn't just about time on the field. It's about consistency, trust, knowing your staff believes in you, knowing your team is behind you, knowing that the people around you want you to succeed, not just survive. Can that be rebuilt after months of neglect? Maybe. But it shouldn't have to be. That's the part people keep missing. This never had to be a rescue mission. It never had to get this bad. The Browns could have handled this the right way from the beginning. They could have supported both quarterbacks equally. They could have let competition play out organically instead of rigging it behind the scenes. But they didn't. And now, they're stuck in a narrative of their own making. One where every decision is being scrutinized. One where every rep Gabriel takes feels like another vote of no confidence in Sanders. One where the spotlight isn't just on performance, it's on politics. And it's only going to get louder. Because once the story turns into they sabotaged a talented quarterback out of fear, it doesn't matter what happens next. The damage to the brand is done. The trust is gone. And the locker room starts looking sideways at everything the coaching staff. So what's the move now? At this point, it's not just about playing Sanders. It's about cleaning house. About resetting the culture. About admitting this has been a failure and making leadership changes before this spiral takes the entire team down with it. That means Stefanski has to go. He's had time. He's had opportunities. He's had chances to adjust. And he's made it crystal clear where he stands. He chose to protect the guy he's comfortable with. He chose not to tailor the system to Sanders' strengths. He chose to use the word development as a shield while doing the exact opposite. That's not leadership. That's evasion. And it's costing them dearly. Let's not forget, Shedeur Sanders isn't just some random QB prospect. He's got the tools. He's proven he can process defenses, handle pressure, make smart throws. He's poised, he's sharp, and he's capable. But none of that matters when your coach treats you like a second-tier backup instead of a legitimate franchise piece. That kind of wasted potential doesn't stay quiet forever. If the Browns don't change course, they won't just lose a quarterback. They'll lose the locker room. They'll lose credibility. And they'll keep earning their reputation as the franchise that can't get out of its own way. And maybe that's what it takes, a full organizational reset. A new head coach. A new developmental philosophy. A front office that values accountability over loyalty. Because what they're doing now, it's not working. And the whole league sees it. Drop your thoughts below. Should Stefanski be fired? Has Shedeur Sanders been sabotaged beyond repair, or is there still a way back? Smash that like button if you're tired of seeing talented players mishandled. Share this with someone who's been asking what's really going on in Cleveland. And subscribe for more hard-hitting breakdowns of the NFL's most chaotic storylines.